what was the process of the US study visa? Can you just elaborate on that?
Sure. Hey guys, welcome to the Aviation Surf podcast. And on this episode, we speak with Colin, who is a flight instructor and a computer engineer in the United States. I hope you leave a like to the podcast and make sure you subscribe it to stay tuned for similar episodes.
All right. So after you've
Yeah.
gotten your flight school pinpointed to, did you contact them? Did you start the whole visa process? What was the next process for you?
All right. So here's what I did. In my case, since I was not from an aviation background, and for me, networking didn't really work out well because the people who I tried to network with, they were either not replying. And that's one of the cases that you will find that many students will not reply, will hesitate, or will just hold back from not to reply. So that's what happened with me. And since I didn't get much replies from students about that particular flight school that I had pinpointed, I then opted a way where in Delhi there was a ground training school who teaches ground DGCA classes and everything. That's where I contacted them, and apparently they were in touch with the school. They were linked with the school. So this guy became my consultant, and he tried to help me with all the things that I had to know about the flight school. He arranged for my visa. He arranged for my interview dates or all the other paperwork, my I-20s, everything. So I came to that channel. A student can opt another channel by doing their own research, get in touch with the school, write an email to them. Every school has a dedicated team for admissions, and they'll be more than happy to help you. And that way you can still save a little more by paying some amount to the consultant.
All right, Colin. So we're gonna go back to your process
Mm-hmm.
of the study visa and how long it took for you. What was the process of the US study visa? Can you just elaborate on that?
Sure. Okay. So speaking about the visa process was fairly very simple because most of the work that was done, like filling up my application and everything, was done from the consultant itself. I had to only keep my papers ready, pay the fees of the application, and just show up on the interview. If you're doing it by yourself, be very careful, be extra careful of making sure that you fill in all the details and relate that with the I-20. Now, I-20 is same as a letter of acceptance in any other flight school or any other country. So a letter of acceptance is known as I-20 in the US. Okay. So
Okay.
I-20 details should match with your application, and all the other details should match with your passport, your personal identity. My personal interview, it was super easy. I made it a point to make sure that I emphasize on the fact that I am coming back to India because that's the magical word they're looking for. Okay. Especially in the US, whenever you come to train, make sure you use this, that you emphasize that you are coming back because that's all they want to know. Okay. So it was a 3-minute interview and things went very smooth. My questions were like, what are my plans? Why did I select US as my training hub? And my answer was very simple that, because of the infrastructure, because of the weather, it will take me lesser time and I will come back again and get my license converted and join an airline here. So it was crisp, it was to the point, and it gave a good idea for the interviewer, and my visa was approved that time.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me also tell you, an incident that happened with my friend. A friend of mine who's also training with me as an instructor here. He was refused visa for the first time, and that lasted for just 2 minutes.
Okay.
That's it. The second time that he went for his visa interview, believe it or not, it lasted for 45 minutes.
Okay.
He was interrogated thoroughly. He was checked. He was profiled thoroughly. So it depends, and also on their mood. So that's what the process is about.
All right. So how long did the whole process took for you from the point you've gotten your I-20 to the point of your visa? And this visa, the interview process, does it happen, take place inside the embassy itself? Do you have to go to the embassy?
All right. So U.S. embassy, U.S. interviews is always in an embassy. Okay, there's not a single type of visa that will be given to you over Zoom or through application or online or something like that. It has to be face to face. Okay, so that's first. So I began this process by September 2017. That's when I started making notes and making firm decisions as to what should be done. And those decisions involved all my paperwork, jotting down all my certificates and making sure that all my bank statements and everything is filed correctly. I went for this interview by end of September. It took 1 week for me to receive my passport again at my home address. So that I think I was ready by the second week of November. That I started booking my tickets. I wanted to spend some time with my family, so spend the New Year's with the family. And right after finishing the New Year's and everything, I think January the 14th is when I took my first flight to the US.
All right. So give or take, it's
2018.
gonna take around 3 to 4 months, and you've got to keep 3 to 4 months for you to finish all the process. All right. I think you came to the US with a M1 visa, right? So what about
Correct.
the part-time jobs? I think a lot of students they think of funding small part of
Hmm.
training with that money they get during those part-time jobs. Is it possible for them to earn during that time?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Honestly, there is no scope for any student who come under M1 visa. So the M1 visa is a vocational visa that does not allow you to work here. Okay. Although there are some provisions for that, that is only and only after you finish your course. I will not get into that because none of the school actually gives you. So on an M1 visa, you come to the US, you finish your course, and you go back to your country. It's as simple as that. You cannot work, you are not entitled to earn anything. Okay. However, there are certain colleges that come up with programs, aviation related programs, like the one where I am situated in Miami. There's a college called Miami Dade. So if you do your research in Miami Dade College, MDC, there is a program. It's called Professional Pilot Technology.
Okay.
Now, what happens is that this program is entirely dedicated or featured for pilots. Okay, like if and they offer you certain credits if you finish your commercial pilot license, if you finish your multi-engine rating and everything else. You know, so those credits could be acquired by just showing your license, by just stating that you are already a commercial pilot license. The
Okay.
beauty of that visa is that they give you an F1 visa, and on an F1 visa, you can work 20 hours on campus and I believe off campus as well. There are very other minute details also added to it. So any student who wish to grab that opportunity, they can do that as well. So do research about MDC, MDC. That's Mike Delta Charlie. So that way you get to know more about that college, and the course that they offer is professional pilot technology. So do that research. That could help you in coming here, perhaps making that extra buck to finance your dream. Okay.
All right. Before we go into the podcast, I wanted to know about the experience of flight training in the United States. Like, what was the first feeling you had when you had landed your plane? First time you took the discovery flight, the first time you sat in that plane, first time you actually landed with an instructor. What was the feeling you had when you started your training? And you've been waiting for such many years. And what was that first
Mhm.
experience you had?
Absolutely. The first experience that I had is in an airplane where I got to sit on the controls and do some manipulation of the controls with an instructor on my side was speechless. Words cannot define like how awesome that feeling was. And it was scary too. When I was
Okay.
sitting in that cockpit. Trust me, I was more confident about the fact that my instructor is there with me, and I know landings are tough, but I was also sure that he's going to do that first landing. But the first time that the aircraft took off, it just lifted off the ground. I was scared at that time, and I was like, "Is this the right decision I've made?" Because trust
Okay.
me, sitting back as a passenger and enjoying that height is
That's
super
different.
easy.
Yeah, that's different.
The day you sit on the controls and know that it's a light airplane, it's just up in the air. That's where things can get a little shaky, and that's what happened with me. So it was speechless. It was phenomenal. I loved it.
All right. So, how long did the whole training took for you? Like, I'm considering your Part 61, so it took considerable amount of time to finish all your rating.
True. Again, it's a very good question. And it throws me into nostalgia. Knowing the
Okay.
fact that that I was very definite. I was very sure that this is what I'm going to do. I've dedicated 1 year of time for my training. I'm going to make sure that I finish everything in 1 year. What happened with me is that let's go a little offbeat. That
No
I
worries.
joined the school. I did my solo private instrument in this school, and I came to India to finish my DGC papers. Now, what happened while I was in India doing my DGC papers? There was an incident that took place in this flight school, and what happened is that two airplanes collided with each other, and there were fatal injuries. Four people died in that incident, and because of that, the FAA made stricter regulation, and that school had to shut its door. But I had this mindset of doing it in 1 year's time, but for some reason the school shut because this is US, and if anyone declares as bankruptcy, you lose it all. So I lost a lot of money in that, and I was a victim of that. So because of that, my flight training got a little delayed. So I took a break of about 7 months in between after finishing my instrument, and after that, got back to the US again to finish my commercial.
Okay,
So
and
give
that
or take, you're looking at somewhere around 2 years of my time.
all right.
But this doesn't stand true to other students. I've seen students who have finished their course in 8 months. Trust me, believe me, they have worked hard. They have been consistent enough in their training, so they have finished in 8 months too,
I think it depends on person to person. I think there's
for
no
sure.
fixed time for a person. A person goes through a lot of things. There are a lot of ups and downs of the industries. Like
Exactly.
right now in the pandemic, a lot of flight schools
Mm-hmm.
closed. A lot of flight schools got bankrupt as well. So I think it
Mm-hmm.
depends on the condition, on the availability. So I think 1.5 years should be done. The whole flight training should be done in a
Give
year
or
and a
take a
half.
year and a half. A year and
Would
a
be
half should
okay.
be a good timeline that you look.
Okay.
Various factors that come under this thing is weather, availability of instructors, also the aircraft if it's under maintenance. There was a point in my school that the multi-engine aircraft was under maintenance for 2 months. So people who were into that course, they were just sitting for 2 months doing nothing. So
Okay.
those things, they really play a lot of major role in your training.
All right. About your solo, what was the feeling you had when you've landed yourself that plane and when you've
Hmm.
gotten outside of your cockpit? And what was the first feeling you had for you finally,
Yeah. So.
you've taken the skies, you've been
Mhm.
around the airport, you've done these many landings. What was the feeling you had?
Yes, regarding my solo was very special to me. I could never forget that day when I was the sole manipulator of that control. I was just sitting in that all by myself. An unforgettable memory. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even know that I'm going to solo that day. My instructor, he wasn't. He just took me for a flight. He did a couple of touch and goes that, as you know, we just go do a touch and then go. He did two of them with me, and then he just took me to a remote parking spot where he got off the aircraft. He's like, "You're going to solo now." I'm like, really? You didn't even tell me. I'm not even prepared for it. He's
Okay.
like, "No, I know that you're going to control it." So he gave it to me. I flew it. I did a couple of patterns, and that's it. I was given my first wing for completing my solo, and that was an incredible experience.
All right. What about the check ride experience you had? Experience of your check rides, like just for PPL, the CPL check rides. How were they?
Hmm.
Were they very difficult for you, or
Well, any check ride, if I have to, emphasize on, check rides are a very, very integral part of your career. Okay, so you got to make sure that you know your stuff. You got to know the basics. You got to know the manuals. You got to know the maneuvers and all the flight aspects. So you got to master them. So that's very important, and that's one phase that most of the students are they get into the pressure zone. All this while when they are flying, when they are building hours, everything feels so good and amazing. But when it comes to the check ride, that's when a student is actually pressurized. So you got to prepare yourself mentally as well as physically for that day, and give utmost importance to each and every detail.
sorry for asking, but were there any
Yes.
failures during your check rides, or you just passed
Hmm.
them all at once?
Oh no. So like I said, there was no failure, thank God, and I was able to clear them all at one go, one shot. And my examiners, honestly speaking, there were things that I didn't know during my check ride. They helped me. They made me understand about it. And yeah, it was super smooth. It went well. Uh, all I got to say is that you need to be prepared. You need to know your stuff because after one or two mistakes, the examiner will also, they won't be in a position to help you also, So it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay, but make sure that it's not a major mistake or a safety concern or something like that. That results to immediate failure.
Are there any scholarships you're aware of that people can take, aspiring pilots can take in the near future
Yeah.
or in the coming years?
Honestly, scholarships for international students is a very, uh, it comes under a very dark picture. There's a gray area over that. So not every international student, gets that scholarship. And in terms of aviation, there is little or nothing out there for students because let's get it out there because aviation is a subject, especially pilot training is one such subject, is that people have this mindset that only the more richer and the affluent people they get into this course.
Okay.
So there is no need for much scholarship or anything that has to be given. That's what I feel. But students can research, students can write to the universities, and check if there's any scholarships available.